As tens of thousands of Cubans continue to line up and pay their last respects to Fidel Castro, Elian Gonzalez is once again the center of attention as he praises the former leader. The size of the crowds, it's another sign that Castro's death affects everyone on the island.
And we have a team of journalists live in Cuba led by Calvin Hughes, Glennon Milberg, and Hatzel Vela.
Let's begin our team coverage tonight with my partner, Calvin Hughes.
Lori, good evening. The plaza is packed right now with tens of thousands of people who have come from around the country and also from Cuba's capital city as well. A multi-generation of people are here, including this young man you see there, and right below him is an elderly gentleman. Once again, multiple generations represented here to remember Fidel Castro, who died Friday at the age of 90, but also making a rare appearance in Havana, Cuba, Elian Gonzalez. You talked about him. He arrived with his father earlier today. You may remember Elian was 6 years old when he arrived in South Florida from an inner tube in the year 2000, 16 years ago. He's now 22 years old, returning to his father in Cuba. Despite the wishes of so many, especially Cuban exiles, it was a major international custody battle that played out in headlines all across the country. And today he called Fidel Castro, you talked about it, Lori, his hero.
He is the friend of all of us, the friend of the weak, the friend of who needs it. That's Fidel. He's the friend of all the Cubans, a friend that gave a hand to everybody.
Well, a number of presidents and prime ministers are going to be on hand tonight, or expected to be. We understand Nicolas Maduro made an arrival here earlier today, as well as other dignitaries. And Raul Castro, now the current leader of Cuba, will give a speech tonight as well, possibly the eulogy. And so we want to show you now the U.S. delegation that is expected to arrive here very shortly, if not tonight, at some point during this week. Ben Rhodes, the security advisor to President Obama, who played a very key role in bringing together the Vatican and members of the Cuban government to begin and restoring diplomatic relations with the U.S. government after some nearly 5 decades. And also Jeffrey De Laurentiis, the unconfirmed U.S. ambassador to Cuba, who is a long-time diplomat for the U.S. in terms of dealing with the Cuban government. Also today, we noticed that the U.S. flag, Old Glory, was not flying at half-staff. That is not unusual. We understand the U.S. Embassy telling us today that that doesn't normally happen. It has only happened one other time before, when there has been a foreign dignitary that has died, and that was Nelson Mandela, who died as the president of South Africa. Also today, we know that last night, a rare appearance by Raul Castro, laying white flowers next to the urn of Fidel Castro, his older brother, along with his Cuban officials who attended. Miguel Diaz-Canel, the first vice president of Cuba, attending and laying flowers. Castro's ashes are now under guard at the Ministry of Defense. So this was a very solemn moment that was represented by Cuba's current president, again, who is going to be speaking tonight, giving a keynote address. And, you know, Cuba is all about image, and certainly propaganda is a tool of socialism and communism. And we learned today that there are people who are going to be signing this solemn oath to continue the legacy, something that Elian Gonzalez talked about on state-run television. My colleague Glennon Milberg has more on that.
Although I'm sure they don't call it propaganda here, what they call it here is an oath, a pledge of allegiance to continue the revolution. And this is something that is going on countrywide. We understand more than 1 million Cuban citizens have gone to locations in their community and put their name in writing to continue and pledge their oath to Fidel Castro's revolution today.
In this one location at an insurance office, a steady stream of signers. These pages of signatures are a collective pledge of allegiance.
Todos los cubanos en todo el país están firmando desde el día de ayer el juramento.
All the Cubans in the whole country are signing this.
This juramento, this oath, promises to uphold and defend Fidel Castro's revolution. The script outlined by Castro himself in a May Day speech in 2000. Equality, freedom, solidarity, continue the fight for justice, and a clear intention, it says, to give Cuba a role on the world stage.
Todos nosotros somos consecuencia.
We are all the consequence of the sacrifice, said Gloria Don Juan.
Almost one of these locations in every single neighborhood. Throughout the island, there are 2,000 places where people can go sign.
Bueno, para mí la revolución es todo.
The revolution is all.
Todo, todo, todo.
Dora Gonzalez Horan echoes the passion and intensity of others, describing equal opportunity for the poor and disenfranchised.
Tengo una hija licenciada, es abogada.
She says her daughter became an attorney thanks to the revolution. We asked Rafael Rodriguez whether citizens had a choice whether or not to show up and sign.
Sí, sí, aquí no hay nadie obligado.
He said signing is totally voluntary and an honor.
Think about that as very simple and basic, no technology, no electronics, but it is this written record, much more of an active participation than even showing up at a mass rally like this. And now the Cuban government has a record of every citizen who took that action and pledged allegiance to the revolution.
Okay, thanks a lot, Glenna. We have a chance to hear from a Cuban citizen, a rare interview with Juanita Castro, the sister of Fidel Castro. My colleague Ian Margold has that.